So this is really important. Here are the steps you need to follow right now. Step number one, you got to decide how much money you need in the first place. How much funding do you need, right? So my question to you, boss, do you need $250,000? Do you need 100,000, 25,000, 50 grand, 33, anything in between? It's all about having a clear idea about how much you need. And a lot of startup business founders, they actually are not clear about their monetary needs. Now you might be thinking, well, this is a very simple question. I know I need this amount of money and then it is what it is. No, it is not that easy. You know why? Because the lender, the business lender, wants to make sure the amount of money that you need is in sync with your business model. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are in a sector that is not growing. Like it's not really competitive, it's lethargic. You know, it's a cash cow. In other words, the sector is generating revenue, but there's not some kind of crazy growth. And you are asking the lender to give you $250,000. And you are a startup. The lender is not going to give it to you because they think, well, you know, there is no growth anyway. I mean, if the sector is growing by 2% or 3%, where is that revenue going to come from to repay whatever you charge on the line of credit? That's option number one. Option number two, think about you are in a fast growing sector where your competitors are actually having double-digit revenue growth rates. And even if you're a startup in a very fast-growing sector, lenders are passionate. Lenders will be enthusiastic about advancing the funds to you because they know there is growth in the industry. And by way of consequence, there will be growth in your revenue, your own startup revenue. Okay, so step number one, you want to decide how much funding you need. And you want to be clear about that. You want to actually justify the amount you need. And this is especially important for unsecured business line of credit. If you have an unsecured business, if you're applying for an unsecured business line of credit, that means you are asking the lender to actually give you the funds with no collateral, either personal collateral or business collateral. So this is really important to make sure that you have that clarification. So step number one, you need to decide how much funding you need. Step number two, you have to get your startup ready for EIN funding. By the way, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. We're having a quick convo about startup business line of credit using EIN only, low doc, fast approval. Okay, so when we talk about getting your startup ready for EIN funding, see, the thing is, when we talk about EIN funding, whether it is EIN business loans, EIN business line of credit, or EIN business credit card, there is a specific formula. There's a specific step-by-step you need to follow. Okay, and a lot of startups, they don't get that. They think, well, when you apply for EIN funding, you just need to use your EIN as opposed to your social. No, things are more complex than that. Okay, in essence, you are asking the lender to actually forget about your personal or credit history and just focus on your business credit history. So you need to have some skin in the game. You got to approach the lender that, hey, listen, my business is worth being looked at on an EIN only basis. And this is not as easy as this sounds. But if you want to get it right, if you want to get your startup ready for EIN funding, first thing first, you got to have an EIN, right? No, that's kind of logic, right? You can't apply for EIN only funding, business funding, that is, if you don't have an EIN. So employer identification number, very easy to get. Go to the IRS's website, you have it. Number two, make sure you have a business bank account. Not your personal account, your business bank account. You got to have a business bank account. Make sure that you have a business registration, an active business registration with the state where you're located at. Business licenses and permits, that's really important. Certificate of good standing, very important, because you want to tell the lender that the lender wants to make sure that you are allowed to do business in the state where you are currently at. You want to have your business phone number. You want to have a business plan. We have said on this and many other shows we have talked about the importance of having a business plan. And it doesn't have to be a business plan necessarily. You can have a pitch. It can be a 1-page or a 4-page pitch. It does not have to be a 50-page business plan. No. And the lender might also ask you when it comes to approving your startup business line of credit using EIN only. They might ask you to show projected financial statements. Step number 3, you want to check your eligibility. By the way, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic, boss. We're having a lot of convo about startup business line of credit using EIN only, low documentation, fast approval. And for us, when we talk about this kind of shows, we're speaking about very fat amounts. We're not talking about very tiny amounts. No, fat amounts. Because if you have a startup, you need cash to actually get your business going. You need to get your business off the ground, and this requires some monetary generosity, if you want to call it that way. Okay, so when we talk about eligibility, now when it comes to the startup business line of credit, there is a constellation of requirements that different institutions have. For example, if you're applying for a startup business line of credit using EIN only with low documentation at an online lender such as Bluevine, the requirements are less strict. Okay, and the same is true if you're applying for the same business line of credit at an alternative lender such as a Toro Capital. Sometimes they call it working capital loans. Sometimes they call it business line of credit. So whether you apply at an online lender or alternative lender, the requirements are less strict. However, they actually compensate in terms of having flexible requirements. They will compensate by charging you a higher APR. So when I'm talking, I'm just actually comparing them to traditional institutions, right? So the requirements at banks and credit unions are tougher. They are stricter when it comes to a business line of credit using EIN only for your startup. Some credit unions and banks do not even consider applications from startups because they want you to have a minimum time in business requirements. Sometimes they ask you for 2 years. Sometimes they'll ask you for 1 year. It really depends on the institution. One thing we have found when it comes to our research is that banks and credit unions are more likely to consider your application, even if you're a startup, as long as you have an existing relationship with them at the personal level. Okay, let's say you have been with Chase for many years, for 10 years, and you have had a great relationship with them at the personal level for 10 years. If you ever have a startup and you are looking for a startup business line of credit, Chase is more likely to grant it to you if you applied properly. So when we talk about checking your eligibility, you have to think about your credit history. Yes, even though this is EIN only, some lenders will want to check your personal credit history. You got to think about your business revenue. In this case, you're a startup, so we're speaking about your projected revenue. The time in business, are you like brand new, or you have been in business for 3 or 6 months? They'll ask for your sector of activity and so on and so forth. Step number 4, you want to research and compare lenders. This is really important because the lender you speak to, when it comes to your startup business line of credit using EIN only, low documentation, will have an impact. That lender will have an impact on your approval odds. A few minutes ago, I was just talking to you about the 4 different categories of lenders that you have to consider when we talk about a startup business line of credit. So you have the traditional lenders. So those are banks and credit unions. And then you have the new lenders, what we call the new lenders. You have online lenders and alternative lenders, okay? And they're different. And so ideally, you want to start where you already are known, where they already know you, right? So you want to start at your bank. So let's say you have been in the same bank for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. What you want to do is you want to go to the branch and you want to sit down with the manager or a deputy manager, and you basically want to have a conversation with them. And so there is a whole process you have to follow if you want to get things done right. So you want to dress up, very important. I know you're probably laughing. You're thinking, well, I'm just going for a loan application, so I don't need to dress up. Hey, listen, boss, I'm telling you, there are things that really work. Now you can choose to listen to me or not. I'm speaking to you based on the shoulders of our team members who have been doing the very same thing I'm talking to you about for 30 years, for 40 years, for 35 years. So first impressions always count. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care if people are trying to lie to you or whatever. You want to dress up. You want to go to a branch and you want to sit down and you want to have a conversation about how you can obtain from the bank or the credit union for that matter, how you can obtain a startup business line of credit using EIN only. Okay, and they'll tell you, they'll let you know whether it is possible or not. And please make sure though that before you start this conversation that you do have a strong relationship with the institution at the personal level, because otherwise you want to wait a few more months so you can build that relationship before talking to people. Okay, because it's not easy. So you can do the same thing for a credit union. You can actually call them too if you don't have the time to physically go to the nearest branch, or the nearest branch is really far from where you live. Then give them a call. Give them a call. Even though we know from our experience, it's always better to have a live conversation. Do the same thing with online lenders and alternative lenders. Give them a call first. You always want to give a call to the lender before you start anything. Step number 5, you want to gather the required documentation. Boss, when we talk about a startup business line of credit, the thing is that a lot of startup founders, like, you might be thinking, well, I have everything. I have my tax returns. I have my organization documents. I have my formation documents. I think I'm cool to go. No, boss. How can you tell the specific documentation that the lender is asking for if you do not ask them? And when I'm talking about asking them, I'm not just saying going on the internet, on the website, on the lender's website, and just getting the data that they have there. You want to give them a call. You want to go to a branch if possible. Okay. The reason is that sometimes there are delays. There are some delays between the actual policy and what's really on the website. It's like for job offers. Sometimes you have jobs that are lingering on a company's website where that those jobs have been filled like a long time ago, right? And people just forget to update the website and whatnot. This could be a similar situation for business lines of credit for startups. So you might have a series of requirements on the website, but then in reality, you have another catalog of requirements. So you want to contact the lender first so that you have a clear idea about what's really, really new here. But generally, when we talk about startup business lines of credit using EIN only, low documentation, you have things like business plan, right? They want to have a better idea about your business. They might ask you for financial statements, especially what they call the projections, right? Sometimes they use the word projections or estimated, or sometimes they use the words financial forecast. So when you hear those words, financial estimations, financial forecast, financial projections, those are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. Okay. They might ask for bank statements, your personal bank statements, and your business bank statements, because the lender is trying to making sure that you are legit. Because if you're not legit, you're not gonna have a business bank account, right? And they will also want to look at your cash inflows and cash outflows, because you are a startup. But chances are, if you have a business bank account, you do have some transactions going through the account. So that's what the lenders is more interested about. They want to know exactly what's really happening. Step number 6, boss, you really want to submit your application. The thing here is that when we talk about having a startup business line of credit using EIN only, there are several ways you can submit your application. You can submit your application via snail mail, like USPS. You can actually just print out the business line of credit application and from the company's website, or you can just go to a branch. They'll give it to you, the form. You can fill everything and just put in the mail and just send it via USPS. It is totally possible. That path will take more time for approval because you got to wait for the 2 or 3 days for USPS to deliver your mail for the application to actually go through the whole chain of hierarchy before reaching the right underwriter. That's why it's a lot better to apply over the phone, via email, or at the branch. Our preference, you probably have, now you're clear about that, our preference goes to a branch application, because a branch application is really where everything is happening. This is where they are going to review your line of credit application anyway. So why don't you just go to the source and just apply at the source, right? This is really important. So when we talk about submitting your application, I mean, you know that your application package should have the standard documentation, right? Things like your name, your business name, your social security number, the desired loan amounts, the loan purpose, your business tax ID, your annual revenue. Now, your business tax ID is the same thing as your EIN, your employer identification number. And when we talk about also, when we talk about your business name, remember that your business name can be actually different from your regular name, right? So normally if you have a legit business, the business must have its own name. But if you have a sole proprietorship, because there are some sole proprietorships that qualify for a business line of credit. I mean, if you have a sole proprietorship, you can actually have a DBA, a doing business as. So basically you don't want to mix your name with your personal name with your business name. So let's say people have let's say you are an architect, right? And your name is John Doe and you're an architect. You can have a DBA such as John Doe and Associates or John Doe Architects and Associates. This kind of combo is really good. All right. Step number 7, this is really important when we talk about startup business line of credit using EIN only, low documentation. You want to watch out for a few things, okay? There are some mistakes you really need to avoid on your application. The reason is that those mistakes are really, they can be fatal to your application. So things that are like missing information, your contact information, your address, your business address. Okay, make sure you double check the numbers. So if they're asking you for annual revenue and you have estimated revenue or forecasted revenue, make sure the numbers make sense, the numbers are accurate. Now you can't talk about accuracy when you have projections, but I want you to make sure that the numbers are consistent. So numbers that you have on your application should be the same numbers that you have in your business plan and your financial projections. They must match. They must actually talk to each other, right? And so you also have to be aware of the cost, the startup business line of credit costs and fees. So you have interest rates. The interest rates can go anywhere from 20% to 100%, even higher, really. You got to think about something called the draw fee. So some lenders may charge a draw fee, which is incurred anytime you draw upon the line of credit. Okay, the draw fee varies based on the lender, but it's usually between 1% and 2% of the amount withdrawn at the time. You also have the payment processing fee. You have the late fee. You have the termination fee. You have the prepayment fee, right? So prepayment penalty. So those are really important. And so I really want you to really pay attention to this smorgasbord of fees, because they will eat into your profit, because those are fees, those are expenses, there are things that are really reducing your profit. And now to finish to this conversation, I want to say that you need to actually also know the top business line of credit lenders for startups. And based on our experience, Blue Vine is a great player. I mean, they kick ass like crazy. You have On Deck, also is a great player. Blue Vine actually provides business lines of credit between $5,000 and $250,000. On Deck actually provides lines of credit between $600 and $100,000. Then you have Cabbage, Cabbage actually provides business line of credit, business funding that goes between $2,000 and $250,000. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.